The alarming rate of jobless youth in the country is a growing worry, as revealed in the latest QLFS report, with students making up 37% of all economically inactive in the country. The number of unemployed graduates down by only 1% at 9.6%. The Harambee Youth Employment Accelerator's Zengeziwe Msimang speaks to us in reaction. Thank you so much for your time, Zengeziwe. Of course, the sentiment is one of a cautious welcoming of this data. How have you reacted?
I think that cautious optimism is definitely in line for these. Because what we have seen is that we're in now the 7th consecutive drop in the unemployment rate. And so we really are starting to see some green shoots. And so, yes, I think it is fair at this point to be cautiously optimistic, but looking at some of the figures that you have said yourself, at 16.3%, 16.3 million unemployed people, then we still have a lot of work to do. We really have a lot of work to do.
We do have a lot of work to do as a country, and you mentioned green shoots a short while ago. Where are they, particularly for the youth in this country, where we know that the opportunities of higher education, where funding is concerned, remain a challenge?
Well, what we've seen is that there has actually been a decrease in permanent employment. And from last quarter to this quarter, we've seen that construction has been an area where we've seen a lot of increases. We've got 104,000 more people who are employed there. We've also seen an uptick within the trade sector. And from an industry gain perspective, we've also seen community and social services go up. Now, if you look at last quarter, Dumi, and you look at this quarter, the one industry gain or sector where we've seen gains is the community and social services. And I think what's great about that is that is an industry that is female dominated. So, as we're in Women's Month, I think it's important for us to support industries where we know that there are a higher number of women who are employed, in the same way that we need to continue to advocate for the fact that there should be no industry that is just a male industry. So I think from the perspective of where we're seeing the gains, definitely within construction, definitely within trade, and definitely within community and social services.
Speaking of women, the QLFS for the second quarter does highlight that black women in South Africa remain the face of unemployment in this country. What's your view on that and the narrative not changing for close to 2 decades now?
The narrative hasn't changed at all, to me. And, black women are have always, in fact, not even increasingly, but have continued to really come in at the highest in terms of unemployment. And they're 4% higher unemployment amongst black African women than there are amongst women generally, coming in at 35.5%. So what we know is that the barriers that young women face to enter the labor market are harder, and they're higher than that of men. And what we really need to be doing is trying to focus on industries where we find young women and help stimulate earning opportunities there. But I think it's also important to understand that within that spectrum, you're actually talking about what our research has shown is that we have women who are more educated than men. And just generally within South Africa, and this is from a youth perspective, for every 100 men that have matric, there's 112 women that have matric. The same, now when you go to higher education, then you find that there is a staggering 150 women with degree equivalents for every 100 young men. So, as I've said, the fact that women are more educated is not translating into women being more employed. And we're also seeing that once they do find employment, the gender gap is the pay gap is a real thing, and women are earning less once they are employed.
With that said, how would you respond to a correlation that needs to be made when it comes to upskilling young people, in particular women in this country, to get into those industries with the aim of closing that pay disparity that you speak of, irrespective of whether they are more educated than male counterparts?
That's an excellent question, Dumi. And I think that what really needs to happen and what we've been doing at Harambee is focusing on those industries. And when we see that uptake we were talking about in trade, we really are, that's a sector that we really are trying to get more young women into. What COVID taught us was that there are certain industries, and most of them are male-dominated, that are more shock-proof than other industries. And so you find industries like construction, industries, the trade industry, plumbing, getting young women into plumbing is a real big portion of the work that we're doing. And I think there's also something to be said for getting young women and men into industries where we are able to ensure that once they've gotten their foot into the door, they're also able to stay within those industries. So training women, upskilling women is essential, but it's also essential to do so in industries where we know are more resilient. And so getting women at an entry level into the plumbing sector. We do a lot of work with IOPSA, for example, in terms of just stimulating women's participation within that industry. It really is essential in terms of making sure that women are not only able to enter, but also have jobs that are more sustainable and jobs that are really going to be more shock-proof for some of the challenges that the economy has been facing in the last few years.
As a parting shot, what is suggested, especially as a long-term model for the South African private and public sector, to ensure that there's a turnaround here, turning the tide and changing the historic high levels of unemployment in South Africa?
And you said it perfectly. Private and public partnerships, I think, are the way to go. I think there's really a lot to be said for platforms such as sayouth.mobi, where we really are trying to make sure that we're able across sectors to have people loading their opportunities on there to make them visible to young people. I think there's a lot of, from a skilling perspective, there are gaps that we need to focus on, but I think that there's also a lot to be said for partnering across society and ensuring that young people are able to see opportunities in a manner that is not just visible to them, but where they don't have to pay these high costs of data. They don't have to travel long distances. So if we all just shift our thinking and look at inclusive hiring and making sure that we take away some of the random barriers and arbitrary constrictions that we have for young people to enter into the labor market, then I do think we'll be looking at a more long-term solution for ensuring that we get people into earning opportunities, as well, I think importantly, into learning opportunities that will lead to those earning opportunities in the long term.
Thank you so much, as always, for your time. Zengeziwe Msimang is with the Harambee Youth Accelerator. They're reacting to the latest quarterly labor force survey.